Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I received another puzzle. It's Watercolor Half Pan by Schmincke. It contains 12 colors and a travel brush by Da Vinci. This is my first time trying Schmincke watercolor pen, so I will be testing this out by painting the watercolor swatches before I start to paint a little snail. So this is the little friend that will be painting today, who lives in my backyard and eats everything in my garden. To give this exercise more challenge, I use a scrap paper, which is the piece of paper that I already used, but it was a fail painting, and I will be sketching on top of this paper and try to paint on top of the existing painting, and we will see how it turns out. But before painting, I need to do color swatch just to get familiar with the color, because it's my first time using Schmincke. I can see that the color is vibrant and it feels smooth and easy to blend. Even though the paper is very thin, but I have no problem painting on it. But of course it can't compare to Arch Cold Press 100% cotton watercolor paper. If I compare this one to my previous one, which is the Winsor & Newton Professional Watercolor Paint, I think they are very similar in terms of price, color, vibrancy and smoothness, easy to blend. But I feel that I get more paint out of the 5mm than the half pan. So it's only a very tiny painting today because it's a travel set, so I like to test it out to paint something small or on a small piece of paper, and we'll see how it turns out and how comfortable it is to use this set. Because it's only a small subject, so I start with wet on dry technique. I feel a bit uncomfortable using this short handle brush because I'm so used to my long one. Using yellow ochre to paint the shell of the snails, and I leave a bit of white for the highlight. Blend it with clear water to soften the edges, and a bit more of yellow ochre over here, and we are finishing our first layers for the shell. For the second layer, we using burnt sepia to paint the brown patches on the shelf. This is a wet on damp. The paper is not completely dry, but it's almost dry, and I get my paint quite thick, cream consistency. If I use a wet on wet technique, the color would run together too much and I won't be able to paint the brown patches. With watercolor, it's all about patience. I can't tell you how many times I have failed painting when I rush to finish. I'm looking at my reference photo and trying to see where the brown patches go. I'm painting just suggesting the pattern, but not trying to copy exactly the same as the reference photo. As I paint, the paper gets drier and drier. Over here it feels quite dry, and by the time I get to paint the end of the shelf, it's become completely dry, and I will be able to create the texture of the brown patches by using dry brush technique. One more important thing I need to mention is when you paint a curved subject, your brush stroke should be curved according to the shape that you are painting. That helps a lot to make it look round or curve. If you painting straight line, then it wouldn't look curve or round. Over here I can see that the brown is continue to create a curved line, so I paint that in. So after this I will let the chalk dry, and then I will start painting the body of the snail. I'm using the blue pigment from the palette to paint over here, as I could see a bit of blue here, but of course I exaggerate the blue a little bit because the reference photo is showing a dull blue, but my blue is a bit more vibrant. I'm doing a bit of scrubbing to get rid of the existing painting, but it didn't seem to work, so I just continue to paint on top of it. Adding cobalt violet wet on dry technique, and let the two color blend in together on the paper instead of on the palette. So some area I do a bit of tapping with the end of my brush to create the texture. With clean damp brush I can soften the edges and also use the light pigment that is on my brush to paint the neck and the head. Wet on wet technique, adding blue to the shadow area and the yellow to the neck and the head. Let it blend together with the cobalt violet. And then also add a bit of yellow on the other side and leave the white in the middle for the highlight. Again, I'm using wet on wet technique, tapping by using the end of my brush to create the texture. This color may look a bit brown on the camera, but it's actually a warm purple because I add a bit of red to it and also a little bit of brown to dull the color. So I use this one brush from start to finish. I even paint the antenna using this brush as well. I just want to know how comfortable it is to use this brush to paint the detail. When the paper is damp, I add the same color to the head and the neck to strengthen the color a little bit. And still tapping using the end of my brush to create the texture. Adding more violet to the shadow area. Using the cobalt violet, tapping to create the texture. Here is wet on dry, so the texture looks a bit too strong for my liking. And I soften over here with clean damp brush to lighten up the color a little bit and add more to the shadow area. And I add another layers of blue wet on wet to the shadow area. And then I move the paint around to soften the edges. Wet on dry technique, painting the piece of timber that the snail was on. Adding more brown to the shadow area around the snail. When we paint wood or timber, it's good to use dry brush technique because it shows the texture and it's easy to suggest the texture of the timber by using this technique. After this, I go back to the shelf to add another layer using the same brown to glaze on top the brown patches where I think it should be a little bit darker to strengthen the pattern. I don't do it to all the patches, just the one that I think it should be a little bit darker to create very different in terms of texture and tone. And I make sure I skip the highlight area and leave it as it is. Then I start to paint the background wet on dry using the blue mixed with the yellow ochre to create the green. And I pick up some area of the green and the other area of the cooler green, which is close to aqua color, painting on the background randomly. Sorry, I turned my paper around because it's easy to paint it like that. I paint the background around the snail a bit darker, so it's give a nice contrast to the snail's head and also the antenna. After using this brush for a while, I get used to it and it seemed to be fine. The short handle doesn't bother me anymore, but I find that it's a bit hard if you plan to do a flat wash with this little brush. So if I'm going to go for plein air painting, I know that I need to bring more brushes with me. When I get the background dark enough around the snail, I drop in yellow ochre to tie the subject and the background together and also create color harmony. This is wet on wet technique. So if you have a bad painting, please don't chuck it away. If the painting is light enough, you might able to reuse it and paint something again so that your money don't go to waste. Or maybe use the back of the paper. Sometimes it has a bit of texture and you still be able to use it for practice. Now I'm using white designer gouache to add the highlight. I prefer to use white gouache because the white watercolor tend to be more transparent than the white gouache. I prefer to use it straight from the tube if I want to add a little highlight like this. If I add water to the gouache, then it will be transparent and the highlight won't be as white or as strong. One more tip about using white gouache is to wait for the painting to dry completely. If it's still wet, then it's pretty much like adding water to the gouache, and it will be transparent and it's not as white as I like it to be. So I'm going to just add more white gouache on the body of the snail to bring out the shiny or slimy texture of the shell. And I will just be adding some more shadow here and there where I think it should be darker, and the final touches to balance out the painting. I like this little guy, so I think I will add this little creature in a bigger composition later. I hope you had fun painting along with me. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you like to get notification, click on the bell so you don't miss out every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much for staying around and join my art journey today. Happy painting!